people who've seen nice people finally snap, what happened? I used to manage a pub in a small rural town, population around 300, in Australia. Running the pub was mostly a business of maintaining the peace between the itinerant oil and gas workers, and the local cattle industry families who resented their presence. The flashpoint for this conflict was usually the jukebox in the bar. The oil and gas guys were usually city folks on fly-in, fly-out rotations, so their musical tastes somewhat differed to the locals. Anyway, so there's a guy we'll call Brian who is the heir apparent to one of the larger cattle empires in the district. Super cool guy, everyone liked him, would give you the shirts of his back sort of thing. Brian had a daughter who just married and was pregnant with her first kid. Sometime during the pregnancy she'd noticed a dodgy-looking blemish on her butt, though she figured she'd wait till she had a kid to get it looked at. Months later, she's had the kid, goes to get it checked. Skin cancer, metastasized everywhere. Weeks to live. There's a huge funeral. Brian is destroyed. At the end of the church service there's a procession of vehicles out to the cemetery. Some Halliburton truck, impatient to be caught behind it, plows down the side of the road and spews dust over the whole thing. From then on Brian would be down the pub every other night. He'd get half smashed, and then put that fucking If I Die Young song on the jukebox that was popular like 10 years back. Man was circling the drain but nobody really knew what to do about it. Anyway, one night, Brian's at the bar and the song is on the jukebox. Some guys in Halliburton patched high-vis start bitching about the song choice. I tell them to just leave it be, but one of them gets up and unplugs the jukebox. Brian plugs it back in and puts the song on again. One of the Halliburton guys calls Brian a depressing old cunt. Brian tells him to get fucked and... well, I don't remember who threw the first punch. But between the fight starting and the couple of seconds it took me to break it up, Brian did enough damage to put the guy in an ambulance. In middle school, my 6'2" gentle giant friend who is literally the nicest guy you'd ever meet got teased about his mom by some short popular kid. My friend no hesitation picked him up by his shirt and slammed him against the locker at eye level and said, "Never talk about my mom like that." One of my favorite memories of him. My best friend had lost his mom to murder a few months prior when we were in the 10th grade. Somehow he had pulled himself together just enough to start going back to school. I don't know how he handled it with being an only child and growing up without a father. His mom was all he had. A kid that thought he was popular that got on everyone's nerves cracked wise to my friend's face about his mom's death. What he said isn't exactly sure. My friend threw him on the ground and punched him in the face multiple times. The end result was a broken nose, a broken left orbital, and my friend got kicked out of school. We were very grateful he taught him a lesson but saddened it had to come at such a high cost. When I was in high school, my group of like 6 friends were sitting at a round table in the cafeteria for breakfast. A table over, some girls had been tossing small chunks of their food in our direction. My one friend, M, wore her hair in an unusual, spiked up style and I guess the girls at the table were trying to land food in her hair while cackling to themselves. Cue my quiet, sweet, introverted friend, K, getting so angry I swear steam was coming out of her ears. One of the girls had thrown a decent-sized piece of her egg patty at us and it landed on the floor near K's foot. K proceeded to step on the egg patty, pick it up off the ground, walk over to the table of bullies, and shove the egg directly into the mouth of the one WHO had thrown it. This was such an amazing moment in my high school memory. I couldn't believe what I was seeing as K was the last person I would have expected to do that. Of course she did get in trouble but she didn't regret it one bit. A long time ago, I used to do call center tech support for fairly complex issues. A really nice, quiet guy went through the same training class. He talked if you talked to him, but never went out of his way to chat. Right after training, the call center changes a ton of stuff. We start getting squeezed on the amount of time we can do documentation, how much research time we have, just metrics in general. It was utter bullshit, because the favorites got to go on smoke breaks as often as they wanted with the managers. We'd essentially be punished for that because we had to keep the average numbers in a certain area. He did all the right things. Talked to his manager, talked to their manager, then to HR. It kept getting worse, plus enforced overtime. Then he got a super long call. He was on it at least 2 hours. About a complex issue, and the customer was just straight up abusing him, but he had to take it because the managers wouldn't give permission for him to hang up. And they were basically screaming at him to resolve this issue and get to his next call, but we couldn't end calls, the customer had to. One day he just stood up, stepped onto his chair, then onto his desk, threw his headset on the desk and sort of growled something like "fuck this," quietly. He looked around, staring people in the face, especially the people who took those long breaks and the managers. Then he walked out and no one ever saw him again. Everyone was super quiet and afraid to move or say much of anything. A lady where I used to work was subjected to constant sexual harassment by a much older co-worker and the company failed to do anything about it. He was showing up at her house, eventually forcing her to move house. After she moved into the new house, he bought the house next door. She arrived to work with a baseball bat and stopped at reception to ask if Tom was in. When they asked why, she calmly told them she was there to kill him. She walked upstairs to his office, reception called ahead and had him take the fire escape, and she instead demolished his office until the police arrived. She was not charged. The company and police knew she had announced her intentions to reception as a cry for help, so she didn't actually find him, because it was clear that if she had found him she would have killed him. She took some sick leave and eventually returned to work. And the company put her on a project with this guy as her manager. Because fuck protecting victimized women, right? She was an assistant manager and was known for being soft-spoken. At a manager meeting, one of the general managers, who was known for being a total jackass to everyone, was going off on how every store should be run. Well, she snapped. You have the highest turnover rate out of any store in the district. You can't keep employees for more than 6 months before they just quit, all saying you were the problem. Maybe you should take that advice you're giving us and use it on yourself. There was a kid at my school in about 7th grade. His name was Frederick. He was loved by everyone, was so nice and donated to charity regularly, everyone knew him and respected him. One day a new kid came to our school, we'll name him Josh. Josh was a big douche. He hit people, pushed them around, threw food at people during lunch, just honestly a big ass. Well, one day he decided to pick on Fred by doing his normal shit, and Frederick just went ballistic, punching, screaming, kicking. They were both suspended for 2 or 3 days. After their suspension they both came back and Josh had a black eye, bruises on his arms and left leg, and he looked awful. Josh thought everyone would start to hate Fred after what he did to him. But nope. Everyone was tired of his shit and picked on him for how bad he looked. Fred was just loved more for this incident. Though he told me he got grounded for a week. One of my middle school friends, whom we'll call Bob, was about a half foot shorter than everyone else. Everyone was around 5 feet. He was an interesting, in a good way, dude. Interested in learning, played video games, was great to hang out with. But he looked scrawny. Didn't look like he could hurt anything, if I'm being honest. For some context to the story, our gym teacher was an asshole. Gave nicknames, some good, some bad, to everyone. He was always sarcastic. Always berating everyone, speaking down to us instead of encouraging them. One day the gym teacher says something about Bob's mom. Which Bob's mom had fibromyalgia and some other conditions making her weak and unhealthy, not by choice. And something in Bob snapped. Bob completely took down this 6.5 feet monster gym teacher. Gym teacher looked like he stood no chance at that time. They were quickly pulled apart and Bob got expelled and had to move school, while the gym teacher was fired for fighting a student and being an overall asshole. In junior high there was this girl named Rachel. Quiet but popular, never messed with anybody, never said an ill thing about another person. One day she was leaving art class and accidentally bumped into another girl. The other girl took offense to this and just started fighting with Rachel. Rachel wasn't fucking playing that day. Rachel took those first few blows and kept taking a few more until she beat the ever-loving shit out of the other girl. But wait, there's more. The girl Rachel was fighting had a twin, and all of a sudden you hear "not my fucking sister, bitch." And she starts wailing Rachel in the back of the head. Big mistake. Rachel basically has sister 1 in submission and turns around and gives sister 2 the same treatment her sibling just received. The quiet, nice girl just took on twins and beat their fucking asses. Well, it was the most glorious thing I saw in junior high school. Other than Sarah's wet t-shirt when we had an R&R day. Lol, I hate seeing people get jumped, or in this situation try to jump somebody, so this was justice. I wish we had cell phones back then.